Deltarune right now is 2 out of 7 chapters released, and although both chapters have been big hits, you might not know about the secret psychological horror that's hidden in chapter 2. But let's start from the beginning, and I mean the very beginning, with Undertale, which released in October of 2015, which is widely regarded as one of the greatest indie games of all time. If you played it, it's probably clear why. It has amazing character writing, some great humor, and a banging soundtrack. But there was one thing that stood out the most. No, not you. No, I'm also not talking about you. I'm talking about the genocide route. And more specifically, how it created fear in a completely unique way, making you feel isolated and alone. But we'll get into that later. Now, with Undertale being my favorite game of all time, I was super excited when Deltarune released in 2018. And safe to say, it did not disappoint. When we first open the game, we get the ability to create our vessel by making our perfect body, shaping its personality, and of course, giving it its name. Just kidding, no one gets to choose who they are in this world. Your actual name is... Chapter 1 starts out by going to school, where in class we get to meet the 3 most important characters for this video. Starting with Noelle, who gets introduced as this shy, smart, very nice girl who is sadly invaded by Birdly, a smug, self-centered, annoying bitch who no one really liked on their first playthrough, and Susie. We get sent with to get some chalk from the school closet, and after she threatens to bite Chris's face off and forces them to do the group project, reinforcing the fact that our choices don't matter, we finally get to the closet, which seems a little bit darker than usual. Now inside this closet is basically one of those expander things you see everywhere in fiction for some reason, where it's bigger on the inside than on the outside, as there's an entire dark world inside of it, where we meet Ralsei, who tells us about the legend of Deltarune. And before we even get the chance to respond, we get introduced to my favorite character in this chapter, Lancer. Now Deltarune has a combat system similar to that of Undertale, with one major change, being that in Deltarune it is not possible to actually kill anyone, as they will run away when they get on low health. This in turn means that our choices in battles don't really matter, which once again reinforces that theme. Now this chapter really focuses on the conflict between Ralsei and Susie about morality, with Ralsei wanting everything to always be solved peacefully, and Susie attacking anyone who gets in her way. And throughout the chapter, this leads to many complications, like Susie joining Lancer and becoming a bad guy, Lancer and Susie both joining Chris and Ralsei as the good guys, and to eventually even Lancer betraying the entire party by throwing them in prison for all eternity. Now this eventually leads to Susie managing to escape her cell and confronting Lancer. And when Lancer won't let her pass, she threatens to kill him, but Lancer just kind of sits there, not wanting her to get past, but also not fighting back either. And although Susie tries to talk all tough, she can't bring herself to actually kill him. Now with help of Lancer, we can free Ralsei and Chris and get into the final battle, where after tiring out the king, Ralsei heals him, which doesn't turn out too well, as he then almost kills both Chris and Susie. And in the end, both Ralsei and Susie realize that not everything is just black and white, and that their way is not always the best. It ends a very satisfying narrative for this first chapter, and overall a really good setup for the future chapters. Noelle didn't get any screen time in the main storyline of this chapter, but we can still learn a lot about her character with the dialogue in the hospital and near her house. Like that she has a crush on Susie, doesn't like Birdly as much as he thinks, but more importantly that she often seems defenseless. If it's scary movies, bugs, or even Santa Claus, she gets scared by anything. And when it happens, she freezes like a deer in headlights. And also that her situation at home is quite hard, with her dad being in the hospital and her mom being the mayor. She's always very busy and often prescribed as cold and blunt. This results in Noelle's seeming quite emotionally unstable, which will become important later. Also, just before the chapter ends, Chris decides to rip their heart out. But although that is a very fun fact, I'm not going to go too in depth because it's not important for this video. Now just before we can get into chapter 1, I want to mention a popular theory that Game Theory uploaded, basically stating that it was all a fantasy game, like Dungeons and Dragons, with a wide amount of proof that I'm not going to go into. But when we get to chapter 2, this is where the game gets really good. Chapter 2 again starts by going to school, and after we sleep through the whole class, we get invited to study with Noelle and Birdly. And after visiting the Dark World in the closet to say hello to Ralsei and Lancer, We go over to the computer lab, which we discover is also now a dark world. And upon entering, we find out that Noelle has been captured by the greatest villain in gaming history, Queen. Now, Queen is absolutely hysterical in this chapter and serves as a great antagonist. Right after she leaves, Ralsei shows up to save us and start the quest to save Noelle. Now, as we start our adventure, we find out, to much of our and Queen's dismay, that Birdly has joined Queen as one of the bad guys.
Now, after Queen recreates this viral Minecraft clip... Yeah, but I'm not done yet, though.
Wait, you're not done building it?
Shilsey breaks her leg, and after getting healed by Ralsei, she also really wants to learn healing magic. So when we get to a branch of paths, Ralsei and Shilsey leave us, so we have to go alone into the city. Once in the city, we can find Noelle, and we get this hilarious encounter with Queen, Birdly, and Noelle, where Noelle has a banger view. And after this, Noelle joins our party, so we can start our quest to avoid Queen and Birdly and find Ralsei and Shilsey.
As we're with Noelle, we find out that she finds it really difficult to say no to anyone but her dad and Chris. After a ton of wacky shenanigans and some lore dumps, we get to meet up with the rest of the gang again.
Now, once we're all together, we solve some puzzles and get to the epic final battle. Oh, never mind, we got captured. So we use Lancer to escape prison, solve some puzzles, Birdly does a lore dump, and actually get into the final battle. Oh no, what that? Oh my god. So we chase her down, and the most epic, crazy, amazing, incredible final battle actually begins. As we take form in a mega robot with forms of everyone we've been nice to in this chapter so far. So in this form, we kick Queen's ass in the style of a Mike Tyson Punch-Out game. But after we beat her fair and square, her detachable hand absolutely obliterates us. And she tries for Noelle to do her bidding one more time. But Noelle actually stands up for herself for once. Which is a very nice moment after all that we've learned about her.
That's basically where this chapter ends off. We close the fountain, we get a ton more world building and exploring I won't get into this video. Chris rips their heart out again, creates a dark fountain in their house, and after more than 1500 words, we can actually get into the subject of this video. Now is a good time to mention that, unlike Undertale, Toby Fox said the Deltarune would have only one ending. Now it starts the same as chapter 2, but after that encounter with Noelle, Queen and Birdly, the route can begin. From this point on, Noelle joins your party. So to start out with Noelle, we need to go the wrong way. Which Noelle mentions in a way. Oh, you have no idea. So as we backtrack, we meet Vito Vitokan. And notice Noelle has a magic spell called Ice Shock. Which, well, this changes everything. As before we were not able to actually kill anything, now we just did. So we need to backtrack some further, all the way to the trash dump, killing everyone along the way, to get to this closed door, where normally Spamton would have his shop set up, where Noelle mentions that it feels creepy, but somehow nostalgic as well. So we then go back to the city, we continue to kill everything we encounter, until we meet this guy. At first, it seems like a default interaction. He offers us some dating shoes, but when we mention we're not looking for something like that,
He offers us the freeze ring.
but we're $1 short. So you tell Noelle to get it.
Now this cutscene is sick. This game just went from this cheery, fun, wholesome adventure to you manipulating two people to murder an innocent person. This moment also marks a dramatic shift in tone, the music now being slowed and pitched down, and the enemies actively running away from you.
Now Toby Fox does a crazy good job at making you feel terrible for your actions. We've seen this in Undertale.
But we'll talk about that later.
As you leave the area of the freeze ring, Noelle seems to have something on her mind. Although this may seem small, this really shows how fucked up Noelle has already become. this previously completely innocent girl just actually thought about killing her old childhood friend.
And it's all because of you.
We then meet up with Spamton, his back alley, who tells Chris in the ultimate Undertale parallel
How many enemies are left for you to kill? Now as we continue to the city, we need to pass some puzzles. So we very kindly tell Noelle to proceed. And although she hesitates at first, we just tell her to proceed. And then she gets scared. Now of course, this works really well. Because we know what's best for Noelle. We're not trying to hurt Noelle. We're just trying to make them stronger.
From here, we kill everyone who's left and return to Spamton, who now has a special offer for us. The Thorn Ring, a ring which cheapens magic spells and damages the wearer, putting Noelle not only in emotional, but now also in physical pain. So of course, you equip the Thorn Ring and head towards the exit of the city, where you meet one final enemy. Birdly. The annoying guy everyone wanted to kill in their first playthrough.
Noelle's study mate. Noelle at first doesn't even recognize him.
Thinking it's just another enemy to freeze. But when she snaps out of it for 1 second, she tells him to run away, knowing he stands no chance. But it's too late. As we enter the battle, we notice a new spell that costs 100% TP. The description just reads, Fatal. At this point, Bertley has no idea what's coming his way. He's just worried about his friend who's acting very weird. But as you defend and defend to get to 100% TP, you tell Noelle to cast Snowgrave. As Noelle slowly limps off, you get the chance of truly thinking about what you've just done. The first time I saw this, I was watching a YouTube video, but it still made me sick to my stomach. You've just manipulated a good person into actually killing their friend. Maybe you try to blame Chris, trying to convince yourself that it's not you, it's them, it's Toby Fox. He put it in the game after all. Maybe you want to believe MatPat and his theory that it's all just a game, it's just imagination. Birdley's not actually dead. But deep down, you know it's not. Deep down, you know it's your fault. You chose to do this. You went through with this. In the end, you kill Birdley. As your mind continues racing, you go to the castle to meet up with Susie and Ralsei. As you walk through the castle, the Queen doesn't even fight you this time. But it doesn't even matter. None of it would compare to what you've just been through. What you've just put others through. So, you walk to the fountain, while Susie goes to check on the well and Ralsei tries to convince the Queen to join your town. But as you're trying to seal the fountain, you might realize you haven't had a final boss yet. And as Undertale has Sans, Deltarune has Spamton Neo.
After you buy the Thorn Ring, Spamton takes over the entire castle, and now he's here to stop you from sealing the fountain and once again taking it all away from him.
And this fight is hard. I consider myself quite a good Undertale Deltarune player. But this fight took me at least 2 hours to beat. But after a grueling fight, Spamton activates his high defense, and you realize there's no hope in fighting. So, Chris calls for help. They try to call for Ralsei, they call for Susie, but nobody came. For one last chance effort, you whisper Noelle's name. With the fountain sealed, you go back to the real world, where you see Birdly lying on the table, not moving, not seeming very alive. But hey, he can just be sleeping, right? So, you explore a bit and decide to pay a visit to Noelle and her father in the hospital. And as Noelle's father wants to speak one-on-one with Susie,
you catch Noelle pondering about what happened. I'm gonna be completely honest. I have no clue what to say on that dialogue, but it is so creepy, so unsettling, and so disturbing. It's the perfect disgusting ending to this disgustingly good route. After this, the ending actually does stay the same. Chris rips out their heart again and starts a dark fountain in their house. So, I guess Toby Fox kept that promise after all.
now, obviously, this route is fucking horrible. And that's exactly why it's so good. This route, when you think about it, it's a psychological horror, but in a very different way than usual.
In games such as Doki Doki Literature Club, these are creepy because the characters know too much about you, or have too much control over the game.
I'm talking to you, Van Wildenbed. Or do you actually go by Eric Van Wilderman or something? What?
But the Snowgrave route is very much the opposite of that. You have too much control over the characters. So much so that you are forcing this puppet of Chris, for lack of a better word, to emotionally manipulate their good friend to kill innocent people. Now, I would argue that this route feels way worse than doing the Undertale genocide route. And although I have seen some theories floating around online, like that it feels more real than a complete genocide and wipeout of the universe, or that it feels like you're incorporating someone else and getting blood on someone else's hands instead of just you and Frisk doing it. The biggest reason I think this route feels so terrible to do is how clear the distinction is made that it is you doing this. It is you forcing Noelle, not Chris, not anyone else. Whereas in Undertale, Frisk does things on their own, like walking through puzzles, having a creepy smile on their face. And although I'm not completely caught up on the lore, it does give the feeling like it's not just you doing this. Now, I definitely tried to emphasize it maybe a bit too much in this video, but that is really what made this route so special for me. Now, my hopes are incredibly high for the future chapters and the game as a whole. I really hope chapter 3 to 5 releases within the next 7 months. And as it's going right now, I can see Deltarune becoming a better game than Undertale, and arguably one of the best indie games of all time. Now, if you made it this far in the video, I want to thank you so much for watching. And if you did enjoy, make sure to subscribe